that there is no reason to suppose that in those early days religious bigotry has assumed such serious proportions as to cause conflict between two dynasties. In his last edition of the Mysore Gazetteer, Rice has this to say. The name Chalukya bears a suggestive resemblance to the Greek name Seleukeia, and if the Pallavas were really of Parthian connection, as their name would imply, we have a plausible explanation of the inveterate hatred which inscriptions admit to have been existed between the two. And the prolonged struggle may have been but a sequel of the contests between the Seleucidae and the Arsacidae on the banks of the Tigris and Euphrates. To strengthen this view, Venkaya mentions the tradition that suggests that the Chalukyas migrated to South India from Ayodhya in the north, and the first thing they did after reaching the south was to defeat the Pallava king Trilokana. The theories of foreign origin of both the Chalukyas and Pallavas are now given up, and therefore the suggestion of a transference of hatred from Mesopotamia to South India appears untenable. The late J.F. Fleet opined that Badami and Vatapi, from where the Chalukyas marched down to the south, was originally the western India stronghold of the Pallavas, and that it was from them that the Chalukyas wrested it. The Velapalayam plates inform us that Narasimhavarman I, after defeating Pulakesin II and his allies, took from them the pillar of victory that stood at Vatapi. On this basis Krishna Sastri argues that it is likely that the pillar of victory had been set up there by one of the ancestors of Narasimhavarman. A fragmentary rock inscription at Badami refers to Vatapikonda, a title assumed by Narasimhavarman I, and the Pillar of Victory. Fleet infers from this record that Vatapi was temporarily taken by the Pallavas from the western Chalukyas. An analysis of these facts show that originally the Pallavas were settled at Vatapi, and from this place they were driven to south. After they had well settled in their new home, they launched upon a series of expeditions to recover their lost northern capital as well as the territory. 33. In the absence of any definite information, this suggestion appears to be more plausible though not certain. The hereditary struggle began during the reign of Pulakesin II. The Aihole inscription gives an account of the first war between the Pulakesin II and Mahendravarma I, the Pallava monarch. It says, with his sixfold forces, the hereditary troops and the rest, who raised spotless chowries, hundreds of flags, umbrellas and darkness, who churned the enemy elated with the sentiments of heroism and energy, he, Pulakesin, caused splendor of the Lord of the Pallavas, who had opposed the rise of his power to be obscured by the dust of his army and to vanish behind the walls of Kanchipura. 34. Pulakesin met the Pallava army at Pulalur, and forced them to turn back. This was the first move, writes K.A. Nilakantha Sastri, initiating what developed into one of the most persistent lines of conflict in South Indian history. It became almost a social law that kingdoms centered in Karnataka and those centered in Tamil country should not tolerate each other, but should keep up an almost perpetual war in which the rulers of the Mysore country and the Andhradesa mingled and took sides, sometimes in their own interest, at others in that of their suzerains. 35. After these military activities, Pulakesin returned triumphantly to his capital, Badami, and reigned in peace. Pulakesin II was now at the height of his power, crossed the limits of India and spread as far as Persia. His fame Khusru II of Persia received an embassy from Pulakesin carrying letters and presents to one sent by him. This unusual political relations between Persia and India is represented in scene in cave Ayatajantha. Yaun Kuang's accounts. The Chinese traveler, Yaun Kuang, passed through Karnataka in about 641 AD and describes the culture of the country. According to the pilgrim, Banavasi had more than 100 Sangharamas of both Mahayana and Hinayana sects. He also mentions the stupa erected by Asokaraja. Going north through a wild forest he came to Maharashtra. Its king was Pulokeshi of the Satriya caste and his influence was very wide. Siladitya Maharaja had attempted to subdue these people with armies from all parts of India, but could not conquer them. Of the people of Karnataka the pilgrim had the following to say: the inhabitants were proud-spirited and warlike, grateful for favor and revengeful for wrongs, self-sacrificing towards supplicants in distress and sanguinary to death with any who treated them insultingly. Their martial heroes went into conflict intoxicated, and their war elephants were also made drunk before an engage.